Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the weekend analysis video. I'm Taylor Moe, and hope you guys are having a great start to your weekend. Here's the weekly chart on SPY, guys. So last week we noted, sorry about all these levels, hopefully you can see this. We noted that this weekly trend line was very near to price, right? And we said that don't be surprised if the market potentially rejects that trend line. And I gave you guys, some important levels on the downside to be watching if they hold, if they don't. So we can see we did come up a little bit short. We actually did in the after hours price action. We actually, if we look at the futures contract, again, excuse all the lines, but you see this trend line here, right? This trend line here was actually touched. If you go down to a smaller time frame, we can see that. We can see that it was touched pretty much perfectly, right? Okay. So what that means, it doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean anything bearish for the long term. And we'll go down to some smaller time frames and look at what actually happened this week. And kind of break down what this means for the market. Is this going to be a long-term top, a short-term top? The signals that I'm seeing so far just from this week's trading action, okay? So here is the daily chart on SPY. Again, excuse the levels. I'm going to go down to a smaller frame so we can look at all of these. But just looking at a daily chart, and the first thing that I notice is, well, there was the gap, right, that we were watching. The first gap, right? We should always be marking gaps, and that's what most of these levels are open gaps. We should always be looking at the next gap and seeing how does the market react there. And we can see each daily candle has a nice lower wick, right? And so that looks pretty bullish, right? And we've had a nice reaction off the lows, off the gap, 3 days in a row, right? And on Friday we closed pretty well. And so while on a daily chart this definitely does look good, and we can go higher, I want to take us down to an hourly chart as well and just kind of paints a little bit of a different picture. We can see right here we have a pretty large breakdown candle. It actually closed below the gap, recovered, but we notice the volume on it, right? The volume is definitely above average. And what we know is that breakdown candles and break up candles, especially with large volume and that close near the ends, they tend to be important when you come back and test the tops, right, or the bottom for a breakup candle. So this is an especially important one because it was high volume. It was based on some piece of China tariff, whatever news that came out. I don't really pay attention to that, but whatever kind of news came out, spiked the volume. It's a catalyst, right? And so all I want you guys to do is notice that while we have had important reactions off the lows, we're currently having larger red candles. We have two here that are quite larger than the green candles that are within it, right? And so until we get back above this initial sell-off area with the high volume, the market cannot keep going up. This zone is a very important area. We've got a gap that's just barely unfilled right here. But really, this zone is the real important area, especially this hourly breakdown candle high. If we close hourly above that, certainly daily above that, that's going to be a bullish sign. That's going to be a sign that bears aren't there to short that weak level, or that strong level, excuse me. And so that shows that there's not as many bears and that bulls are taking over. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go to new highs, but it's a sign, right? We look elsewhere and we put the pieces together. But that's the first sign I'd be looking for, is this level right here, the 311 to 311.30 to 50, right in that area. Doesn't have to be exact. Definitely be watching that area and watch this gap on the downside, right? All we've done is come back to test a breakout area, right? We came up, rejected, we gapped above it, And the reason I have 310.26, if you're wondering, when a market gaps above a breakout area and does not come fill that gap, wherever it stops is typically a very important level as well. And so that's 310.26. On this low, if we go down to a 10-minute, you can see how important that is in the recent price action. When we've gotten below it, we've gone down to fill the gap. When we've gotten above, we tend to stay above, right? We got below it, we tried to make a run at the lows right here, right? Couldn't get down to the gap. This is bullish here. We're seeing higher lows, guys. So until that trend breaks, until we get a harder rejection below the gap, I think this is probably going higher. And we'll go through some other indices to actually see why. So let's go to start with the IWM here. These are small cap stocks. They're riskier. And again, we've said the past 2 weeks, we'll say it one more time. The IWM is bullish. It's in a bullish pullback. It's broken these two, what I would say are pretty solid trends that we should be watching. It hasn't broken any downtrend. It is holding the most recent pivot highs. It's now closed 4 weeks in a row, above these pivot highs, right? Yes, it still has one more, but it's a bullish sign, and we can see it even more on a daily, right? I mean, look at this. It's not bearish whatsoever. This is a bullish pullback. It's the most clear bullish pullback I've ever seen. Now, it doesn't mean we can't come down a little more. We could. The market can pull back. It's been extended. So this zone right here is somewhere I'd be looking, and it's a mixture of a breakup candle low and a gap down here. So if they come down to test this low, they can't quite hold that low. Maybe they go fill the gap. Maybe they come up short from the gap. Maybe they spike through it and come down to this low even. Are we still above the weekly trend lines? Can we bounce and keep the weekly close above those? Then that's fine. We're still bullish. We're still on a breakout, still going higher, but it can come down more. Okay, so be looking for both sides. Be aware that right here, this box is a very strong support zone, but this is a bullish pattern, guys, and it's holding these recent pivots. It's bullish, okay? Transportation average. This one had some downside. This is typically a market leader. So this one was leading to the downside. We can see it came off the trend line there. It's still been fighting this, important red zone here. And we go down to a daily. And so this one is interesting as well. This is a zone I was watching. It's similar to the IWM. It had a breakup candle low right here, and it had a gap just below. So somewhere in that zone, I'm looking for a reaction. And the DJT happened to go and close below that zone. And I said, well, that doesn't look great for the market short term. It looks like it might want to go down to this next zone, which has a similar setup here. But it actually was saved on Friday. And if you look at a weekly close, it got saved. It had a nice lower wick that was bigger than the other 2/3 of the candle. And so, I have to see that as bullish for now. Not that it can't come down and test these lows, but for the week, again, we have another more bullish signal. It came back and saved itself. It could have closed the week below. It could have held Friday below that zone, right? If it was truly bearish and there were truly lots of sellers, I'd say once the DJT gets back above the breakup candle low, and especially above this gap right here at 10,850, that area, it's almost certainly going to go back up. It can fill that gap and perhaps go down. Remember, markets are attracted to gaps. We want to watch how they react around the gap to tell us what might come in the future. If the DJT goes up, closes a day above that gap, we're most likely headed higher, and it's going to continue to be a market leader, so we want to watch this. Okay, next is the XLF, the financials. I've said this many, many times over the past few videos. These are looking incredibly, incredibly bullish. What runs America's economy? It's financials, it's banks, right? This is something we need to take note of. We've now closed a third week above a trend line where if this market was truly bearish, it should be rejected from that trend line. It should be headed lower at this sell-off area. It should continue to go lower and break trend, but it's not. It's breaking trend to the upside. Okay, go down to a daily chart. It's the same situation as the IWM, almost more bullish though. It's continuing to make higher lows. It just closed at a new daily high in this flag. This is very bullish, I think. I think that financials are looking to go test the all-time highs, and I do have a weekly trend line. It's a bit makeshift, but it has quite a few touches here. So we should be looking for resistance not too far away. If we bust right through this, guys, that's a bullish signal. If we start closing weekly above these, watch out above, watch out for another decent sized bull run, because financials, guys, if financials are doing well, the market is not going to crash. It's not going to go down. The economy is fine if financials are fine, okay? So watch this area on financials. They're sending us a signal, guys, and we got to pay attention to this. And just to look at a couple big banks, we'll look at Bank of America. Is there anything wrong with this chart? Let's look at a 20-year month, right? Is there anything wrong with this chart currently? Is it not just in a giant bullish pullback that is now currently breaking over the recent pivot highs? We have a monthly close in a week, guys. This is going to be big, right? Let's look at JPM. JPM, it's already broken. It's soaring to new highs, right? If we go to maybe a weekly, something lesser here, right? Is there anything wrong here? No, absolutely not, right? We had a gap, a weekly gap. We have another one down here. This will be filled at some point. But for now, we had a gap. We had a nice long weekly wick, and we're back at the highs. Is there anything wrong here? No, right? Watch this area where we bounced before. Can this see some pullback once the XLF gets to those all-time highs? Sure. Yeah, I can see pullback. It can go sideways, and that will be hints to us as to the long-term, financial plans. Is it going to go sideways to go even higher? Is it going to pull back and fill some of these gaps, retest these, and maybe have a month or two long pullback? So we want to watch these levels, and then we can be aware of the state of the market, because financials are the heart of the market, guys. We've got to pay attention to those. Okay, last but not least here, the SMH. The SMH is the semiconductor ETF. This tracks, all the semiconductors, AMD, NVIDIA, QCOM. It's a good idea of what tech is doing, guys. And I want you guys to notice here, SMH did have a bearish engulfing on the weekly. Now, I want to show you why it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot to me as far as a long-lasting top. I think it can be. I think it can lead to some short-term downside. And why is the reason for that? Mainly because the SMH was leading the market long before it really got going. It was broken out. This was one of the first things I said. I think it was in my first or second video. Guys, this thing's breaking out. This is a hint, guys. This is a hint about tech. I said this. I said this right here, guys, when this was breaking out on the weekly chart. So this has been kind of ahead of the game. Can we see some pullback? Can we see some pullback? Yeah, we have gaps. We have a nice low here that was made that zoomed off to the upside, that can be an important level. That also coincides with this breakout area. So, somewhere in this 122, 121 to 126 area, even 127, we can see pullback to this area here. And there's nothing wrong. It's still holding trend. But just know it has been going up. It did have a weekly engulfing. Some people are going to hop on board short on this, guys, just because of that, right? There's going to be people that are looking at this. And if you look at some of the charts, let's just look at some of the charts in the XL in the SMH, excuse me. QCOM, right? It tried to break out to new highs, and what happened? It actually failed, right? We have a breakup. We come down. We're still above the highs. Now we're back below the highs. Now, does that mean anything? Not necessarily. We haven't broken below the breakup candle low. We haven't broken this zone. There's also a gap right here. So this zone is a huge zone on QCOM. I want you guys, there can be some trade setups here, whether it's bouncing and continuing higher, or if we end up breaking below, we can come down pretty decently far here, right? We can get another $5 out of QCOM. So be watching these important levels. The SMH is at a critical level, and a lot of the stocks within it are also kind of teetering, right? AMD has been incredibly strong. It also has a weekly reversal candle. It's on pretty decent volume, right? It's also at the top of a trend line, okay? It's also after 8 straight weeks of green. Can we see some pullback in AMD? Can we see a pullback back to this breakout area, 36 to 34? Absolutely, we can. So we have to be aware that tech is a bit overextended. It can see some pullback. NVIDIA. Is NVIDIA at a very important level of 214, 215, 216? Look at these pivots. Pivots, 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 and this is weekly, right? We broke below. We came back to test what area? This area, and we fell away. This is an important area. Can we see downside? Can we go visit this recent pivot high, this breakup candle low? Can we go visit this uptrend line? Absolutely, we can. So we have to watch these SMH stocks in these important areas. One last one, Intel, it's also at a pivot high, right? It's also at a giant breakdown candle. And it's showing reversal candles. Does it have to go far? No. Can it remain bullish long term? Yes. But these are some areas to watch on Intel, right? And notice how many gaps it has. It's really poor market structure. It's not meant to sustain a move that will go very, very far, right? These gaps need to be filled, or they're going to create liquidation breaks. They're going to create a market that wants to just be a magnet towards those gaps, right? A market cannot just zoom to all-time highs with all these gaps, right? It doesn't work like that. So be watching. This area is the first. This area is clearly the second. Many pivot highs. This is a very well-defined breakout area. Intel, if it comes down here, I would be a definite buyer. Even if it spikes down here, I would absolutely buy some Intel here. Whether it's a short-term trade and it turns into a swing, I'd be looking to buy Intel down here, okay? So now we see the state of tech. XLK is the ETF for technology, and these are weekly trend lines. And these are also, they're at a weekly trend line, guys, just like the ES, just like the SPY. It doesn't have to go bearish, but we should be watching important gaps, important pivots. We can see more pullback. We can see pullback, but realize the state of the market is still bullish. So look for important places to buy dips. Look for signs if the market is becoming more bearish, like cutting right through gaps, closing days below important pivots. Look for those kind of things and be watching for those kind of signs. Okay. Guys, that is gonna be it for me. Okay, I don't have any real top picks. I think what you guys should be watching is the SMH, the stocks within there, looking for those potential pullbacks into buy zones at gaps, at important pivots, at breakup candle lows. Try to look for those important areas to buy the dips, right? And also, I do have one other sector here. The healthcare sector has been heating up. Um, just a tip. UNH is one stock, right? It's been heating up. These are pretty volatile. They can continue to move. Um, so continue looking for possible upside. I'm not haven't looked too much into these stocks yet, so I don't know if they're really going to continue this week. But there has been quite a bit of hype around them. So I'd be watching stocks like UNH. We can look at the healthcare ETF here. The healthcare ETF, broke out. It does have room. It does have room. It closed a week above, this breakdown candle high, the pivot high. Look for this to remain bullish. Look for people to be trading this. If you guys are looking for stuff to trade during this kind of weird pullback time, look at some healthcare stuff. And yeah, guys, that's about all I have for you. I don't see anything that looks incredible on weekly breakouts. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I hope this guys helped you. Or I hope this video helped you guys. If you guys did enjoy, please like it, please share it, and subscribe if you are not. All right. So I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. See ya.